Hi, I'm Leo Laporte. Coming up next, Hands on Mac, Window Management. Hands on Mac comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Mac is brought to you by LastPass. Allow your remote workforce the ability to do their best work securely without jumping through hoops. Visit lastpass.com/twit. Hey everybody, Leo Laporte here, longtime Macintosh user, and today, as we do every Friday, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the Macintosh. I'm going to show you how I organize work on my Macintosh and compare it with some other techniques that people use. It's all about Windows. In the earliest days of windowed operating systems, there was a big debate between tiling, which was having non-overlapping windows, just tiles on the screen with different programs running in each tile and no space in between them, or overlapping windows, which is what eventually won. The idea that you could have a number of windows open, you could position any of them arbitrarily. Sometimes windows would be hidden behind other ones. One of the reasons people didn't want to do that is it's computationally intensive. You have to figure out what you can see and what you can't see. But with the more powerful computers, even 20 years ago, it became easier and easier to do that. So there was really no computational reason not to do it. And I think there are still people today who like tiled windows, who prefer that as a user interface. But all our operating systems, all our graphical operating systems these days use windowed systems, overlapping windows. But it's not necessarily the best way to work. So I want to show you how I work with Windows on a Macintosh. And then I'll show you some third-party tools that let you do some other things. This is something that took me a while to understand, and it has to do with some Macintosh tools that you may not be aware of, and the idea of workspaces. The Macintosh has something called mission control. I don't know if you're familiar with mission control. A lot of times people don't use it. If you're on a laptop, you can swipe up with 3 or 4 fingers. If you're on a desktop, you can press, if you have the function keys at the top of your keyboard, you can press the mission control key or just control up arrow. And on most Macintoshes, control up arrow, will open up mission control. Now, I only have one window open, so let me open a few windows to give you an idea of what mission control can do. We'll open up our chat room. We'll open up a weather forecast. We'll open up email. And for mission control to work properly, it's important to make sure that none of these windows are full screen. Now, when I press Control Up arrow, I will see, there we go, the view of all the different windows, all the different apps that are running, and I can see the workspaces I have open. Now, this is important. Workspaces, I think, are the easiest way to work in Windows. It kind of crosses between a desktop computer and an iPad. As you know, with the iPad, almost any time you're working with a application, it's full screen. Let's go full screen. And on this computer, I'm going to click the full screen button, but there's also on most Macintosh programs, there's a full screen entry in one of the menus, either the View menu or the About menu. I've gone full screen now. This means that I can't see any other windows, but when I press Control Left arrow, it'll slide left. Control Right arrow, slide right. This is, in my opinion, the easiest way to use a Macintosh. I do everything full screen, zoom it wide open. This one's not, so let's make this full screen. And now everything has its own desktop, and it's very easy to either use a 2-finger swipe on the trackpad, or, I'm sorry, the 3-finger swipe on the trackpad, that'll swipe between spaces, or use Control Left arrow and Right arrow to move in between applications. Not everything has to be full screen in this operation, so windows that aren't in full screen will then be, you can see, overlapping windows just like this. What I tend to do is I make everything full screen. So I'll make the chat room full screen. And then I can just very easily swipe back and forth I find that works better with the way I work because I don't multitask very well. In fact, I'm of the opinion nobody multitasks very well. We only think we do. We just task switch very quickly. And it's easier to focus on one thing at a time. And by going full screen, I think that's the easiest. So the trick here is using these full screen buttons to zoom the screen window out, or using a menu to zoom into full screen mode. See, there it is, enter full screen. What'll disappear is the menu bar. It disappears. And I think for browsing, that's actually a really great way to do it because you get the full window. You get all the real estate. And if you move your mouse up to the top of the window, you'll get the menu bar. Don't forget that not only control left and right, but control up is also useful. Control up then shows you a list of your workspaces. You see, as I've gone full screen, every time you go full screen with an app, it makes a new workspace. Or you can manually add workspaces by clicking this little plus button, and now I'm adding new empty workspaces. I can even drag an application to a workspace. So you don't have to be in full screen to use this. And if you press Control up arrow again, let's move my mouse up to the top so I can see all these windows. I can actually just click a window and go right to it. I think this is the easiest way to work. Lots of people, though, have other ways they like to work. I'm going to show you some other alternatives. Apple allows you, with Mission Control, to create up to 16 different workspaces and move around. This is how I find it perhaps easiest to work on the Macintosh. But there are times when you want side-by-side windows, when you're working together. And Apple also allows that. In fact, it's even easier now in Catalina. Most apps in Catalina, if you put your mouse over the zoom button, you'll see some extra choices. And this started in Catalina. If you're in full screen, your only choice will be to exit full screen. But once you're out of full screen, then you can tile the windows. Now, it's a pretty limited choice. You can only tile the windows left and right. So it gives you the chance to, if I zoom out, have two windows on the screen. You can, just as you can on the iPad, change the size. Oh, this is annoying. See, this is why I don't use this, by the way. I'll show you a better way to do it. But I just want to show you the way that's built in. You can, once you do this, I guess I just hover it. There we go. Tile it right. I can now, you see there's a little bar here that I can stretch and resize this. I guess I have to have another window there. That's annoying. So let's not use Apple's built-in way of doing it. I actually like the idea of full screen and moving around, navigating with Mission Control. There's also spaces. If you press and hold an app in the dock, let's do that here with Safari. You can choose which desktop you want a space to go to. And your choices here, if I zoom in, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Then do this. Go to Options. Now I can assign this to all desktops, this desktop, or no desktop. So I can even, if I work in Spaces and Mission Control a lot, I can even say Safari always goes to desktop 2, or email always goes to desktop 4. So you can really start to set up some spaces. There really isn't an ideal way of doing it. It doesn't remember where everything goes very well. It's useful if you have multiple screens, but I find stuff moves around quite a bit. Apple's solution is really just a bare bones solution. But that's good because it leaves room for a lot of probably better third-party applications. There's three well-known ones. There's one that's free. It's called Tiles, and it's a really nice app, especially considering it costs you nothing. Even the free version will do a better job of organizing windows than in my opinion, the built-in Catalina. But this is kind of simple compared to other paid Windows managers. For $3, there's another program that I think is quite good called Magnet. I know a lot of Mac people who insist on installing Magnet. It's the first thing they install whenever they're using a Macintosh. Magnet does a little bit more than Tiles does. For instance, you can have 3 windows, 4 windows, as many as you feel are justified on a screen. Plus, you can make special key combinations for arranging those windows. So it takes a little while to learn how to use Magnet, but once you've learned how to use it and those keystroke combinations are built into your fingers, there's all sorts of things you can do. Magnet also has a menu, if you want, that you can have on screen to make it a little bit easier to remember the keystroke combinations and to choose the various ways you want to do it. If you really like having tiled windows and multiple windows open on a single screen, I think Magnet is a very good choice. There's one even more expensive choice that the people who use it are just really sing its praises, but it's not cheap. I think it's $10, but it's worth taking a look at. It's called Moom, which is short for Move and Zoom. This is Moom from Many Tricks software. And this is even more sophisticated in terms of the number of ways you can organize a window. You can also have windows that are not full screen or even tiled, but occupy different parts of the window. It is a pretty smart program. Again, like Magnet, there's a bit of a learning curve on it. But if you are somebody who likes to modify your Windows organization, Moom is even more powerful. It might be worth starting with the built-in capabilities of Catalina. See if you like that idea. See if it's comfortable for you. Personally, I prefer to use full-screen windows. I find that very easy. Whenever I open an application, I zoom it full screen and then use Control-Arrow to swipe back and forth between spaces. I find that the easiest. It's something I do on Linux as well. Even on Windows, you can do something similar. But if you want something a little bit more tiled, that debate still continues. Start with tiles, move to Magnet, and if you want even more, then you might want to take a look at Moom. Both are very powerful. I'll show you a little bit of how Moom operates so that you can get a sense of whether it's worth the money. Moom has a fairly steep learning curve. In fact, they offer a variety of movies to get you started. One of the first things you'll see with Moom is there's quite a few settings. You can have it launch automatically. You can determine how you use the mouse and what happens. You also can have a keyboard hotkey, which I always make Control-M. And then you can decide whether that shows the cheat sheet or and you can also change how arrow keys and so forth. So it's very, very fancy. In fact, you really want to get crazy with Moom. You can set a grid for, the default grid is 6x4 and so forth. So it can get very, very fancy. This is worth playing with just to get an idea of what it can do. I think there's a very steep learning curve on this, but I also think if you want complete control over window placement, Moom might be a little bit easier to use. One of the first things you're going to want to take a look at is how you want Moom to run, whether as an application, in the menu bar, or faceless. I always make it in the menu bar, so it's now going to restart. Now I have Moom up here in my menu bar, which makes it a little bit easier to figure out what options are available to you. You also, notice, can save your layout, and that's really important. That really makes a big difference. So we can do, this is what's built in, the move and zoom to the left and the right, but we can do a lot more with it. But you can see that you could basically figure out how you wanted every app to work on a given screen, where you wanted it to be, and then you can easily add it to the drop-down menu or to the menu that shows up when you hover over the zoom button. So I think that there's a lot of good capabilities in Moom. It's going to take some time to not only figure out how to use it, but also to kind of figure out how it works best. Moom really is about organizing the screen. It isn't really about tiling windows. Magnet is more about tiling windows, snapping windows into position. In fact, let me quit Moom and launch Magnet so you can see Magnet at work. So Magnet really is about tiling. So we're going to make sure Magnet launches at log in. You can see I have my Magnet window right here. And this actually is nice because it gives me both keyboard commands and menu commands for all the logical things I'd want to do. This is much more like what Catalina does. Although, like Moom, because only Catalina is low enough in the system to do this resizing, this iPad-style two-window resizing. Like Moom, it's separate windows. But it really is about snapping the windows. It's great to maximize. You can center. Let's minimize and center. You can restore the window as it was. I think Magnet is probably for $3 kind of be really the right thing to try. If Catalina doesn't give you enough, take a look at Magnet because it really is a very useful tool. And there are a lot of preferences, a lot of things you can change. You can change all the keystrokes, for instance. You can have windows snapping, which is nice. You can unsnap to the original size, which makes it easy to get back to the way it was. So as I drag a window around, you see that. You see that. It can snap to the size of this, to where the screen is. You may remember our Better Touch Tool piece earlier in the series, Hands-on Macintosh. It also can put window movement controls right on the touch tool. And that works really well if you're using Catalina's Windows movement. It'll also work with Moom and Tiles and Magnet. So that might be another way. If you have a touch bar on a MacBook Pro, that might be another very easy way to organize your windows. It comes down to how you want to work. My personal preference is to work with full screen windows. When you full screen any application on a Macintosh, it creates a space, it occupies that space, and you can quickly move from space to space with Control left or right arrow. Control up arrow gives you an overview with mission control of every space and every application. To me, that's the most logical way to work. But there are people, especially people with a single screen, or if you're on a laptop, who want to make more efficient use of just that single screen. And for those people, Tiles or Magnet, or if you need a power tool, Moom will allow you to arrange your windows in a way that you can see exactly what you want, no more, no less, and jam it all into a single screen. I'm not crazy about that because I don't like small windows. I want to see everything full screen. Maybe that's an age thing. There are more choices than just Tiles, Magnet, and Moom. There are a lot more choices. I think if I were going to pick just one, I would say Magnet. For those of you who like tiled windows, who want to quickly and easily snap windows into place. And if you really need more customizability down the road, Moom would be another great one to look at. But clearly, organizing your windows is a big part of getting work done on the Macintosh. I personally, whenever possible, have 3 screens, and I use these tools to organize each screen just the way I like it, save the setup. That way, the next time I boot up the Macintosh, everything is where I expect it to be, and you kind of get the muscle memory of, I got IRC over here, I've got the browser here, I've got my messages here. That makes it a much more efficient way to work. And when I'm on a single screen, one screen at a time is all I need. I hope that opened up your eyes to some of the Windows manipulation possibilities in the Mac. This is all relatively new. For a long time, Apple was very dogmatic about how the Mac should be used, and it was overlapping windows or nothing. Our show today brought to you by LastPass. LastPass recently surveyed 700 IT and security professionals across a wide range of industries. 82% say their business has been exposed to a risk due to poor identity and access management. But thankfully, LastPass can help you manage identities and promote good security behaviors while your employees are remote. LastPass gives employees their own vault for storing every app and web login they use and allows them to share logins while keeping access to corporate data safe. Visit LastPass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. That's LastPass.com/twit. That's it for this edition of Hands on Mac. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. I'm Leo Laporte. Bye-bye.
I'm Jason Howell, host of Tech News Weekly here on twit.tv, along with my co-host Micah Sargent. Each and every week, we talk to people who are making and breaking the tech news. It could be journalists writing amazing tech stories. It could be experts. It could be the sources of the stories themselves, developers, you name it. We bring them onto the show and we talk to them about why their story is resonating with the world. You can watch and subscribe by going to twit.tv/TNW. Make sure you do that and you won't miss a single episode. We'll see you there.